Just because a person is laughing at you does not mean that they are your friends. Just because a person sometimes might be direct towards you or don't smile does not mean that they are your enemy. Do not mean that they have malicious intent in their hearts towards you. What energy is behind it? So you know how there is another area to life, an area that is beyond the surface level. I'm talking about another part to life that is beyond what is obvious. You know, the obvious things that you and I can say. And this other side of life it holds more information. And the interesting thing is that many people, including myself, do not have the ability, or we are inadequate. We do not operate in this area of life. Where we operate for the most part is on the surface level of life, on the surface plane. And this reminds me of a story I heard from a guy in passing. And the story was about him getting an escort to spend some time with. Now there's a reason I'm sharing this story. It's not for judgment or for anything. So keep your mind on the track. Now don't get off course. And he said one day he got an escort and he paid for the time. And when they got to the room, the escort was ready to get down to business. The escort was ready to play. But he didn't want to play. Okay. And he said out of nowhere he felt like a compassion towards her. And so he tried to talk to her. The more he tried to have that kind of conversation, that nature of conversation that shows a bit of compassion, the more the escort rejected that, the more the escort was like trying to just get down to business. Hey, let's just do this. Save your advice. Save all those type of talks. You came here for a reason. So he told her, look, I know I already paid for the time, but I'm not interested in doing anything with you. I just want to talk to you. I feel a compassion towards you, and I just want to talk to you. And she was confused. I bet she was probably looking at the guy like, she probably didn't know what to make of this guy. And so the guy said, he just started having a conversation with the girl. And the guy said it wasn't even long of a conversation, and she just started crying. Like she started weeping. I'm talking about boo-hooing. She was crying so hard that the guy said he became speechless. Like he didn't know what to do in that instance, because even the tears took him by surprise. And this is the same person who at first was very hesitant, not even hesitant, was just shutting the guy's conversation flat out. Was just trying to unbuckle and get down to business with the guy. She didn't want to hear anything. She was rejecting everything that the guy had to say. And here she is, crying. And I know most of you might be thinking, well, the guy went there, so he's not any better. Look, that's not the point of this story. The reason I said this story is because, like I said earlier, there is a part in life. There's a different part in life, something that we don't operate in. And that side, you see, that area in life hold more information. You see, energy, for instance, and obviously I always talk about how I don't like that word energy because it can be misunderstood. But what I mean is, people can laugh in your face, but you feel it's not real. People can smile at you, but you can feel that deep inside, beyond the surface, they are sad. A person can just sit there, just existing, and you just feel their suffering. A compassion inside of your heart. Something about them just draws compassion out of your heart. Like you just feel. You feel their suffering. You can feel their pain without them saying a word, without you even knowing them. A person can laugh at you or smile, but you can feel that they are sad. And this is what I'm trying to say. Beyond the obvious things that we can see, there is another area that gives you more real and authentic information about people and situations. Just because a person is laughing at you does not mean that they're your friends. Just because a person sometimes might be direct towards you or don't smile does not mean that they are your enemy. do not mean that they have malicious intent in their hearts towards you. What energy is behind it? We all have to be aware of ourselves and the world around us. We all need to be aware of those little things in life. See, because if you always operate on the surface, you will never find anything worth exploring in life. And I think that's the reason why most of us do not operate on that other side, because our view and our outlook on life is solely based on the surface of the things that are obvious to us. And even sometimes it's not that they are obvious, it's just our perception, because you see, we all exist in our own world. Because life is complex. You and I, we all have life going on, and sometimes we can exist solely in our own world, that we don't explore nothing. But I think it's important that we all need to be aware of ourselves and the world that is around us. And we need to interact with the world around us with this understanding. And I think when we become aware of ourselves and also the world around us, it helps us to remember that we should not attribute to malice what can be attributed to incompetence. What I mean is, we should not assume that a person's action is motivated by malice, ill intent, when that action can be explained by stupidity or their ignorance or their incompetence, which is their inability, their inability to perform, their inability to exist to a certain standard in that moment. You might look at somebody doing something, but because you're outside of that experience, it's easy for you to look at that and say, do they not think? How can this person be so insensitive? How can they just be so self-absorbed? For instance, in the gym, sometimes we see those videos where people are recording and somebody walk through the camera and they get upset, and sometimes they get upset to the point that they call a person stupid. But I think it's important that we all understand that everybody's life is complicated and complex, just as our lives. But the reality is that each and every one of us do this same thing. We all live in our own world, and sometimes we don't see other people around us. We all live in our own world, and sometimes we just function in this place where sometimes that other people might look at and say that we are insensitive or that we are self-absorbed. You're recording your content, or you're just existing, you're doing something, and somebody do something, and you just automatically assume that the intention behind that was malicious. And sometimes the intentions behind people's action might be malicious. But what I'm saying is, unless it is crystal clear, do not assume. Give people the benefit of the doubt. Never make room for assumptions when you can give people the benefit of the doubt. When you're dealing with people or working with people, it's important that you realize that their mistake might not be necessarily them trying to undermine you. They just might be unaware of the proper procedure. When you test a person and they are taking too long to get back to you, instead of you assuming that they saw your message and they are ignoring you, you can tell yourself that they are busy, or perhaps their phone is dead. And this is not you trying to live in denial. The truth is, you do not know what the truth is anyways. This is you not making room for assumption. And I know some actions are genuinely malicious. And what I'm talking about does not excuse harmful behavior or way of life. It's just a useful reminder to not assume the worst in every situation, to make space for growth and understanding. Because the truth is that we as humans, most of our error or lack of knowledge is the reason behind our perceived offense. Not because a person is deliberately attempting to cause us harm. What energy? What is the intention behind them doing what they do? Not every actions are motivated by malice, by ill intent. Always look for a less malicious explanation to things before assuming that somebody is trying to harm you. The truth is, if you are not certain, if it's not clear, if it's a situation that perhaps there might be a different explanation for it, it's safe to err on that side of caution instead of assuming. And that's one of the things that I do. One day I was driving with someone in the car and If you know anything about Atlanta Road, you know it's wild out here. And the person told me, why you don't get upset? Why do you drive without getting upset? And I told them, I said, when I drive, when somebody cuts me off, I just tell myself that maybe they are an inexperienced driver. Or maybe there is something that is going on in their life. Wherever they are going, they need to be there. Maybe they have an emergency. That's how I explain these things away. And I think it's important for us to always remember the mistakes that seems deliberate might simply just be a result of poor knowledge or carelessness. And I do implement this in my own life, even in relationship with family and friends. Because I know I'm somebody who sometimes I can be a bit demanding in ways that things get done. But now, you see, I think I'm able now to make room for improvement and not be so hard on people when I feel like they keep making the same mistake over and over again. Especially in areas that don't really matter, that really causes any harm. So I think when you operate like this, it will help you reduce negative emotions. Look, life is already stressful enough. I was reading an article the other day and it was talking about how the #1 killer of people is worry, stress, unhappiness. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate you and I hope you guys keep doing the best with what you have. Thank you.